What's up guys, welcome back to another video. It's alexoconnor here, and today we're going to be responding to Christianity's Biggest Problem by Alexoconnor. Oh boy, this is going to be a tough one because it's Alexoconnor. He seems to generally know what he's talking about. He's a pretty smart guy, I'll say, and I kind of respect him as well because he seems pretty honest too. He seems like he tries to be a pretty honest guy. Anyway, let's get to the video.
Guess what? I gave a TEDx talk, which you can now watch via the link in the description. It's quite exciting if you ask me. I've never done one before, and it'd be great if as many of you as possible could go over, watch the video, and give it as much engagement as possible. Speaking of engagement, I've also been trying recently to put more content on my Instagram page. But anyway, let's get on with today's video. Now, I know that it's quite a bold claim that I've made in the title to have put my finger on the single biggest problem that Christianity as a religion faces. But let me explain. I want to put forward in this video what I think is the hardest objection to respond to if you're a Christian. Now, as you'll probably already know, the most famous problem that you have if you want to say that the Christian God, that is, an all-loving, all-powerful God, exists, is the positively colossal amount of suffering infused into the human experience. Suffering is so omnipresent that most of our time spent existing is time spent trying to avoid it. Eating to avoid starvation, working to avoid poverty, sleeping to avoid fatigue, watching YouTube videos to avoid whatever it is that you're supposed to be doing right now. And that's when things are going well in life. God also throws into the bargain of living existence, which nobody agrees to enter into, by the way, unpredictable diseases.
Well, was he supposed to ask us before making us existent? Like, how is he supposed to do that? That'd be kind of contradicting. Like, how can he ask someone who doesn't exist if they want to exist? Like, what is he supposed to do? Right. I mean, we'll get into this more later as well. But you'll probably see my response about this later. But we'll see. We'll see what he has to say.
Miscarriages, natural disasters, and the existence of TikTok. Why would an all-powerful...
The existence of TikTok. I mean, TikTok can be kind of a great evil sometimes, and with misinformation and all that. But anyway, let's get back into it.
Powerful God, who truly loves us, permits such suffering to overwhelm our living existence. And
okay, I think he's coming in here with a assumption that suffering in itself is evil, that suffering equals evil. But I could argue, at least otherwise, partially, because, well, what about exercising? You lift weights, and that hurts, that's suffering, you suffer. But you gain muscle, and you maybe gain experience or learn new things from that. So, suffering isn't all evil, necessarily, because, or you might not say suffering is all evil. Suffering isn't all necessarily bad, it can be beneficial for you.
this problem for religion is called, as you'll likely know, the problem of evil. But there's something missing from this picture. I'm not just here to restate the problem of evil as if it's anything new. There's something else. Right? There exists such an obvious and overwhelming version of the problem of evil that it bemuses me that so many philosophers leave it entirely out of the discussion, or at best relegate it to a passing paragraph or a footnote or something. I'm talking, of course, about the problem of animal suffering.
Okay, the problem of animal suffering. Okay, so let's see what he's got here, because he's right, not a lot of people talk about animal suffering, they just talk about human suffering. Let's see what he's got to say.
Now, before you think I'm just getting all vegan on you again, don't worry, that's not what this is.
Again.
I know how sensitive some of you are to me pointing out that our own treatment of animals is so poor that it almost reaches godlike proportions. But that's not what
okay, buddy. Let's see where he's gonna go with this. Where are you gonna go with this, Alex? Let's see.
I'm here to talk about today. Right, animals suffering in factory farms, for instance, can easily be explained away by the Christian as a result of human free will.
Well, yeah.
I'm talking about something else. Right, I'm talking about the suffering of animals that isn't human created. The suffering that exists in the wild as a result of natural processes. And by the way, the reason this video is called Christianity's Biggest Problem specifically, rather than just religion's biggest problem, is because I actually think that some other religions, like Islam, have bigger problems than animal suffering. But
bigger problems than animal suffering? Like what? Are you inciting that animals are worth less than humans, therefore their suffering is worth less than humans? Or you just think that there's more convincing arguments against Islam? Is that what you mean? I don't want to mischaracterize you, Alex.
Animal suffering is still a problem for other religions like Islam, so although in this video I'm going to respond to William Lane Craig, a Christian, on the subject, do bear in mind that these arguments should apply to any god who claims to be morally perfect. So this is the basis of my claim.
So okay, notice that he's kind of judging God here. Now I know it's like, what else do you got? Like he's judging the judge of all things here. Let's see where he's gonna go with this.
If the problem of suffering is historically one of Christianity's biggest problems, then the problem of animal suffering is its biggest. So I should probably begin by unpacking why animal suffering is such a problem worth addressing in the first place. If human life is, as I've argued, infused with pain, then non-human animal life is defined by pain. Animals in the wild are subject to endless torment from all angles of their existence. They suffer from predation by other animals. Wild dogs disembowel their prey. Venomous snakes cause
Well, doesn't that happen to humans too? I mean, some could be God's judgment for like if it happens to be a human, but like other things though, like could be, I guess for animals. Well, let's see what he's got to say first, and I'll try to respond.
Slow internal bleeding and paralysis. Crocodiles drown large animals in their jaws. Right? And animals also suffer from rampant disease, dehydration, and starvation. They have to contend with...
Well, maybe like the painful deaths that animals can have is result, or that or at least the way they kill their prey is by evolution. Because I don't personally believe evolution is at least anti-biblical. Or it necessarily is, so maybe it's evolution, and you might want to. What about like, well, did God cause the animals to evolve like this? You could probably say that, but what if it's the devil? What if God, because the angels, his devil was an angel, they had a bit of power, like the horsemen of judgment, and everything. They have the power to like release the bowls of judgment. Of course, only if God wishes, but Satan, perhaps God didn't take away Satan's power when he cast him down to earth, because to allow him to have free will with his power, and so Satan then causes people and animals to suffer. Perhaps that's what happens here. I know it might be called, oh, you're blaming Satan, how Christianly cliche of you. Like, well, I'm not saying everything's Satan's fault, but like, he's kind of a bad guy. Well, that guy, angel, he's kind of a bad creature, I guess you could say. So why wouldn't he be doing that?
With forest fires and floods and a whole manner of other terrifying natural disasters.
Also, once again, with natural disasters, maybe Satan has power over natural disasters to some extent, right? And such. So
David Attenborough, the celebrated nature documentary filmmaker, once said about his documentaries, "People who accuse us of putting in too much violence should see what we leave on the cutting room floor." Nature just really isn't a pretty place, and not only do wild animals suffer in these extravagant ways that humans generally do not, like having to live with the very real possibility of being mauled to death at practically any moment.
Now, I mean humans could too, depending on where you live, but I mean it wouldn't be probably as much as like the animal risk necessarily, but let's continue.
It's also true that, compared to humans, an astronomically higher number of wild animals exist. So unfathomably high, in fact, that we can only estimate how big that number actually is. The number of wild vertebrates alone is thought to be somewhere between 10 to the power of 11 and 10 to the power of 14. That's 10 with at least 11 zeros after it. We're talking trillions of animals, each one of whom will, under the unerring supervision of an all-powerful, all-loving God, likely experience more fear, devastation, and suffering in their lifetimes than we human beings are even capable of imagining. So this is...
Once again, Satan probably hates all of human creation. So he makes human creation suffer. I guess, why does God allow Satan to do that? Well, because, he allows Satan to have free will for now, but eventually he will be in hell, and eventually he will be punished for his deeds. So it's not like all the suffering from animals by Satan would have gone unpunished, or even by humans would have gone unpunished. Because they would be punished. They will, God is just. He will punish them, so...
Is the problem that the Christian has to contend with. How can God permit such insidious levels of unthinkable suffering? Well, it's not like Christians don't have a response to the problem of evil. There are many quite famous attempts to reconcile the existence of evil with a loving God. The problem is that a great many of these attempts, which are known as theodicies, by the way, simply don't apply.
Hold on. Oh, what's
That a great
theodicy?
many
Right,
of these attempts, which are known as theodicies, by the way,
the vindication of divine providence in a view of in view of the existence of evil. My goodness.
simply don't apply to non-humans. For instance, one popular theodicy states that evil and suffering exists as a result of human free will. Right? If humans are genuinely free, they'll sometimes commit and permit evil. But this doesn't explain why a tree falls onto a deer's leg, causing it.
Like I said, maybe because Satan has free will, and Satan has more power than humans do. Except, well, of course, not with when humans have the name of Jesus, they have more power in the sense of backed up by God. But that's not what I'm saying here. Like, Satan could make a tree fall onto an animal, perhaps. I mean, who says it's God? Who said it had to be God doing that, right? So, let's continue.
To starve to death in confused agony. Right? It's also sometimes asserted that human suffering is justified because it will be compensated for in the afterlife. But unless you believe in some doggy heaven, or that Jesus died for the sake of your pet hamster's sins too, this also doesn't really fly for animals.
Okay, well, first of all, how do you know it doesn't fly? Because nothing in the Bible, as far as I am aware, let me know in the comments below if I'm wrong, says that animals can't or don't go to heaven. Right? Jesus, sure, I think died for the sins of humanity, but that's because I don't necessarily believe that the animals may be under the law, because, well, I guess it depends on your view of the fall, but as far as I know, it's the humans that fell, not the animals necessarily, except maybe the snake or whatever that got that tempted Adam and Eve. But that was technically viewed as Satan usually. So, animals may have free will themselves, and animals may also not be under the law themselves. So therefore, they may be able to go to heaven too and be compensated for their suffering.
It's also sometimes said that suffering exists because from it more good can emerge. But what good emerges from animal suffering? And how does it benefit the animals? Most animals are non-rational creatures. They can't learn and intellectually grow in the same way that humans can.
Well, not in the same way, but they can in some ways. I mean, they can't learn in the sense of maybe they can learn in a basic sense. They can learn if a cat someone tried to trap a cat, and the cat goes into the trap and falls for it, right? And then they spay the cat, bring it to the vet or whatever. Then they bring it back or something. Basically, the cat goes to the vet or whatever, and they get they keep the cat. Humans keep the cat or something, or maybe let it out later. The cat may eventually learn the next time a human traps it, it is going to have that experience, and so it may not do that again, right? And it can help the animals learn and grow. He's right in the sense of, not exactly in the same way humans can, maybe learn moral stuff, but still, I mean, animals can still learn from some things, so that doesn't completely debunk the argument there.
What greater good could possibly be served by allowing a koala bear to be burned alive in an Australian wildfire? Well,
once again, also possibly Satan that does that, or maybe the animal, or if God did do it, maybe God can perhaps once again, if the animal goes to heaven, right, which is feasible, I would say anyway. Also, take my opinions with a grain of salt, because I am not a theologian. I am not a pastor. I am not a master of the Bible. Please go ask your pastor if you have any questions about stuff like this. But anyway, I'm just saying what it could be possible, right? What could be feasible from what I know. God could give the animal I don't know if recompense is the right word, but basically reward the animal for its suffering, if that does happen, right? If within God's judgment the animal chooses to have been in the forest at that time, God could give it recompense, in a sense, if recompense is the right word.
fear not, because in 2011, two very eloquent philosophers, Stephen Law and William Lane Craig, both previous guests on this channel, by the way, debated God's existence. Dr. Law brings up the problem of animal suffering, and so we can now turn our attention to what Dr. Craig, often cited as Christianity's greatest public defender, has to say about it.
Now, let me say one more thing about animal predation and suffering, since this featured largely in his argument. Number one, animals are part of a broader ecosystem in which the human drama is played out. And such an ecosystem must be balanced if it's to be viable. It is no accident that every ecosystem involves predators of some sort. For example, I also recently saw a program on television about how the Canadian authorities are reintroducing wolves into the wild in Canada. Why? Because in the absence of these predators, the caribou herds were overpopulating because there was no one to pick off the diseased and the aged, and as a result they were overgrazing and therefore dying of starvation. The predators actually enhanced the survivability and the health of the caribou herds on which they preyed.
Okay, so Craig's argument is this. True. If an ecosystem is unbalanced, leading to an overpopulation of prey, this prey will die from starvation since there won't be enough food to go around.
Yeah.
By ensuring that predators exist to pick off the diseased and the aged, the ecosystem is balanced, preventing that starvation. But there are just a multitude of problems with this, right? First, it's of course true that in practice, any functional ecosystem we know of requires predators and prey in order to be balanced. But why does this need to be true in principle? Right, the laws of ecosystems, as they stand, require predation, but are we expected to believe that God couldn't have made these laws differently? Is God constrained by these laws? That's the implication of saying that an ecosystem must be balanced in this way.
Well, is there any way you can think of, Alex, that would be better? Let's see if he comes with anything.
God couldn't have created a balanced ecosystem using other, less painful methods. In other words, the laws of ecosystems somehow constrain what God is able to do. Are we really to think that the laws of ecosystems are more fundamental than God is? No, God is the creator of the laws of ecosystems, and so can't be bound by them. And besides...
Well, how do you know he's the creator of that? I mean, sure he created the world, but perhaps Satan had influence with it, corrupting what God had created in the ecosystem, maybe having been better than this, made it worse into something that has a lot of suffering for animals in it by Satan.
It's granting that God does need to balance an ecosystem, predation is not the only way to do it. God could have, for example, limited the number of times an animal can reproduce as a way of preventing overpopulation, a form of cosmic contraception. There's definitely a joke about a condom brand in there somewhere. But no, for Dr. Craig, God limiting an animal's sexual potency or any other kinds of painless methods are not possible options for combating overpopulation. No, the only way...
Well, God doesn't necessarily, pop in all the time to do things like that whenever, animals are necessarily, going to be overpopulated. Right? I mean, animals as well may have free will. I don't know if they do. Okay, I couldn't tell you. I'm not an animal like the animals that we're talking about here. I know humans are technically animals, okay? Don't come at me in the comments for that. I understand that in a technical sense, but like the other types of animals besides humans, right? Those animals could or may or may not have free will. If they do have free will, then they could hunt them. They can choose to hunt other animals. Now, you might wonder, well, then why would they have been made like predators and prey? Well, animals have something to eat. Maybe the devil had a hand in evolution, and he had himself evolved animals to eat each other, or perhaps as a result of the fall and the animals fell with. Perhaps in a certain sense, that's different from humans. But I mean, there are, I guess, various possibilities here.
Way that God can save these animals from overpopulating and starving to death is to introduce savage predators who maul them to death in some of the most painful ways humanly imaginable. That's the only way to balance the ecosystem. mean, come on. When a lion kills a zebra, the zebra is usually too large to be killed instantly, and so is often asphyxiated to death, writhing in pain over a slow, minutes-long death. I mean, even if predation really is the only way to stabilize an ecosystem, there's still absolutely no reason why it would need to be so painful and so gruesome.
Unless it was from Satan, perhaps. I mean, perhaps it was from Satan that had arrangements, like I said. And once again, also, perhaps animals will go to heaven and be recompensed. What's the word? I guess rewarded for their pain, rewarded or given maybe recompense for the pain and suffering they had on earth. Perhaps that is a possibility. God will have justice on the devil if he did do that, and he will punish the devil for his sins, perhaps against animals, and all will be just and fine in the world.
Could provide for these animals an instant death, or at least one that's less painful. But he doesn't. He allows that zebra to suffer for minutes whilst its windpipe is caught in the jaws of a lion. Just imagine for a moment what it must feel like to be that zebra. None of this is necessary for ecosystem stability if you truly are the omnipotent creator of natural laws. And Dr. Craig is arguing that predation is justified since it prevents prey from starving to death. But is the fate of being preyed upon and eaten alive really that much better than starvation? Would you, given the choice, rather die from a lack of food or from being painfully mauled to death by a large wild animal? I'm not sure I have a particular favourite. It's hardly a merciful deal that...
I guess it depends on who you ask. Some people would say that the death of being mauled by the animal is more honourable because you're dying by a stronger creature. Maybe you died fighting, that'd be honourable. I'm not saying that's what I believe. I'm just saying people could argue against that in that way because not everyone has the same opinion,
being offered here. God is so loving that he saves these animals from starving by ensuring that they're ripped open and eaten alive before they have the chance to starve. Wow, what a glorious and loving thing that God does.
Well, I'm not saying God does that. Like, I'm saying Satan might do that. It could be a product of the fall, perhaps, or just Satan after that, and maybe the animals didn't get affected by the fall. These are just possibilities here.
For these animals. And why should these animals even be suffering from so much starvation in the first place? That still needs to be explained. And also, bear in mind that predation doesn't even get rid of starvation, just some starvation. Even with predators, there are still animals starving to death in the wild. And so if the reason that God created predators was to save prey from starving to death, why are some animals still allowed to go on starving to death anyway? None of this makes any sense. And on top of even that, note that the same justification that Dr. Craig is using here could also apply to human beings. Right there.
Also, why would some animals be still allowed to starve? Well, perhaps, like I said, the animals may have some form of free will or some form of will where they can choose where to go to eat. Maybe they didn't go to the right spot to eat, and maybe could be their own fault that they chose the wrong spot to build their house, or well, not their house, but like their maybe their burrow or their cave that they go into. Maybe they found the wrong spot there and they could have found a better spot, but they decided to stop there and do that. So, and then they didn't get any food because they chose the wrong spot or wrong place, wrong time or something.
There are currently millions of human beings lacking food and at risk of famine in South Sudan. And starvation is one of the most painful things that a person can go through. But don't worry, I have an idea. Let's go to South Sudan and introduce some wild predators. Maybe some wolves or some large bears to painfully maul these people to death. After all, if we didn't do this, they'd all starve. By allowing them to be preyed upon by wild animals to pick off the diseased and the aged, we reduce their numbers and balance out the ecosystem, leaving more food to go around and minimizing starvation. How merciful of us.
Well, maybe the whole thing is it's not what it's for. Like I said, maybe it's not God doing this, it's Satan. Perhaps maybe Satan had a hand in this, or free will has a hand in this, that animals have, perhaps. So, or that Satan has. Maybe Satan has some influence on that. I mean, I don't know why, Alex is always saying, well, God must have created it like this. Well, how do you know Satan didn't have a hand in this either? How you know that Satan didn't have a hand in the suffering and then God did not? And we might wonder, well, then, well, the animals have to suffer then. Well, well, why would God allow them to suffer? Well, perhaps because, like I said, God could reward them in heaven for that. So all will be paid, and all will be well in the end.
So who's for it? Yeah, I didn't think so. Now, okay, you may think that I'm being a bit unfair here, right? There are obviously many other methods we can use to reduce starvation in South Sudan that don't involve killing people with wild predators.
Well, yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of the point, right? If we humans have the power to reduce human starvation without necessitating them being mauled to death by wolves, then you can bet that God has the power to reduce elk starvation without necessitating them being mauled to death by wolves. The idea that permitting this kind of unthinkably painful death is the only way to prevent them from starving if you are the omnipotent creator of the universe verges on one of the most ridiculous things that I have ever heard.
So that predators are an essential part of an ecosystem. In a world without predators, the insects would soon take over, since there would be nothing to eat them, and all the animals would soon die because all the vegetation would be consumed by insects.
Once again, Dr. Craig assumes that the only way to control population sizes is by killing individuals within that population.
And you're assuming the only reason why this is happening is because God is making it happen. As it so seems to me anyway. Maybe he had other ideas, but he decided to just pop this one in on the video.
No mention of any other methods that God might have available to him. But also, was it not within God's capabilities to make it so that insects and wild animals just eat different things? We
Perhaps
need predators, says Dr. Craig, because otherwise...
Perhaps he did, and the devil had changed that so that animals would eat each other. Or maybe that's what the fall did. Perhaps it was a punishment from God. I don't know, but I mean, I can't tell you for sure, obviously, but these are just ideas. I'll say take my opinions with a grain of salt.
Nobody eats the insects, and the insects will eat all of the predators' food, and the predators will die. Yeah, as if it literally wasn't possible for God to provide different food for wild animals and insects. The only reason this problem even exists in the first place is because of the way the ecosystem has been designed. You can't just say God needs predators because he designed a world that needs predators. That doesn't explain anything. And to reiterate, even if the animals really do need to be preyed upon for whatever reason, the process could have been made a lot less painful.
Well, like I explained, it might not have been God who made the process like that. Maybe he made it something different, and then the devil corrupted it. Just like sin corrupted us. Perhaps sin also corrupted animals, or maybe that isn't the case. Perhaps the devil had corrupted animals in some way, or had changed the animal's DNA using his power. That's what I think could be feasible. So, anyway, that'll be it for the video. I'll do a part 2 perhaps later. I guess it's the last 6 minutes of the video for part 2. If you guys liked, leave a like. If you guys enjoyed, subscribe please. And if you have any opinions that you want to express in the comments, or if you have anything you want to say or any responses to me, please leave them in the comments below. I would love to read them. I would love to know what you think, if my arguments are good or bad, and why or why not. Thank you guys for watching, and also please check out Alex O'Connor's channel as well. He I guess be careful if you're Christian. You know, like it's good to question your faith at times, but you don't want to go too over head over, what's the saying called, don't just dive in the pool before you're ready to dive in it. You know, you'd want a decent foundation first, but you know, check out his channel if you want to know more about I guess just these topics, and if you want to maybe try to refute them yourself, or to see if he's got some good points, and maybe to strengthen your faith by watching the videos and answering the questions yourself, or maybe make a response videos to him. Anyway, if you like the video, make sure to subscribe anyway. Have a good night out. Bye!